Hello, my name is Tony Beers, and this is Movie Grades.
And just like the movies, we play out our last scene.
One of the worst things about this movie is they're making the same mistake they made with Spider-Man 3, and that is throwing in all three villains in the movie and too many villains and having all these plot lines going on at the same time. I mean, you got this story with Peter's parents, you got the story with Electro, you got the story with Green Goblin, you got the story with Rhino, you got story with Aunt May, you got the love story, you got 6 things
going
on at one time, and I thought they could cut down on a few things. How do you feel?
I kind of agree with you on that. I mean, they made out Electro like, oh, Electro is the big bad guy in this movie, and he really wasn't.
He's not.
He
No.
really isn't.
It's
Around
false advertising.
You could put Electro in there, and you could put Green Goblin in there, but put it in. Okay, they were together for what, maybe 15 minutes on screen together.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna put more than one enemy, have them plotting from the get-go together to get Spider-Man,
Right.
and they really weren't.
No.
It was about Electro had a different. He was looking at different revenge than Green Goblin was,
Right.
and then they just kind of connected for a little
Right.
bit because Harry needed something from him that
Right.
he couldn't get,
Right.
and then it just happened that he used, he knew that Electro was pissed off at those guys from Oscorp. So
Right.
I mean, it was. That was the only time that was interconnected.
Right.
If they could have done it for a longer period of time and it would have been more interwoven,
Right.
it would have probably been better.
I'll give it credit here that I thought it was better than the Venom Sandman team up.
Yeah.
Because if you watch, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 3, Venom goes up to Sandman and he says, "Hey, you hate the Spider-Man, I hate the Spider-Man, let's go get him." And Sandman's like, "Alright."
Yeah.
And it was like, there wasn't no, like you say, no interwoven story. It's just,
Yeah,
they're like, okay.
They were just both like PO'd at Peter Parker, and it's like,
Yeah.
why are you mad at Peter Parker? He's like, I don't know, I'll just help you out because you seem cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it seemed like.
They didn't have a team up like you thought they do. You will both attack Spider-Man together and strength in numbers type thing. It was like, okay, I'll fight him now. Okay, now it's your turn to fight him. It was Electro. I thought he was so lame. I'm serious. I've come to this conclusion in my life. It took me about 30 years to get here, but that Spider-Man doesn't really not have very good villains.
He's not a good one. I don't like him or Sandman. I thought they're the two lamest. We've had this discussion before. He's got so many better villains. Scorpion, Shocker. I won't dare say the Vulture, but I mean he's not much better, but he's better than Electro. And then Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Those are way better. And yet, who do we have? Electro
Yeah.
and Green Goblin.
Electro and Rhino both are lame villains.
They're lame.
I have to say. Spider-Man's villains, the best thing I can say about them is they have cool powers.
Yeah.
But it ends there. Granted, Electro has a cool power, but he's not an interesting villain, and they showed that here, because he was just an obstacle in Spider-Man's way.
And Max Dillon was this schmuck, lonely guy, no friends.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about him.
Right.
What he's saying, he's out there in Times Square, he's like, I just want everybody to see me.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're glowing. And you're blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't you make a spectacle already?
Electro reminded me so much of other superhero villains. It's become a cliche now. Like, he is exactly like the last character in Iron Man 3. It's the same thing. He wanted Tony Stark to notice him. You know, and he's got pissed off when he didn't.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for Riddler in Batman Forever.
Yeah.
And Syndrome in The Incredibles. It's the same character all three times. So I thought it was very cliched now. Oscorp runs everything. Everybody works at Oscorp.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why does everybody have to work? Peter's dad works at Oscorp. Kurt Connors works at Oscorp. Electro works at Oscorp. You know, Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn are at Oscorp.
Gwen Stacy worked at Oscorp.
Gwen Stacy worked at Oscorp. You have Felicia. They call her Felicia. I don't know if it's
Felicia
actually
Hardy
if it's Felicia Hardy or not. She works at Oscorp, and it's like, come on. I mean,
Robin works at Oscorp.
Robin works at Oscorp. We see in the background Dr. Octopus's tentacles and Vulture's wings, and you said you thought you saw Mysterio.
I thought it was Mysterio. It could. I don't.
And Rhino's suit comes from Oscorp. It's like, come on, you have some varieties. It's less interesting if everything comes from Oscorp. I was telling someone else, Oscorp is just a factory that builds supervillains.
I gotta agree with you there. I mean, if I remember correctly from. I mean, I haven't read a Spider-Man comic in a long time, but all those villains made their own stuff. Shocker made his own suit. Rhino, I don't remember particularly how he got his. I think somebody gave him one.
Yeah.
But didn't Vulture made his?
Vulture made his own stuff.
Mysterio made his costume.
Yeah.
And, you know, it goes so on and so on. Doc Ock, well, his was an accident, but his tentacles were basically, you might as well say he made them. But if you got those, I mean, those characters, those villains were great in the comics because they identified themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Shocker, like I said, Shocker made his own shock suit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't go, Norman Osborn, can you make me a shock suit?
Right. Yeah.
I want to be known as the Shocker. He didn't do that. He made his own.
Right.
And I think that takes away from, like you said, it takes away from the villains a little bit.
On to my next point, which is, you know, Green Goblin, okay? How did you feel that this time Norman dies and Harry becomes the first Green Goblin?
I don't like that particularly. I was really kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, obviously, when you watch the movie, you see that Norman Osborn has something wrong with him, and they kind of show it a little bit. Like, his hands are obviously goblin-looking hands.
Yeah.
To be a purist with Spider-Man, I have a real problem with it because Harry Osborn was not the original Green Goblin. His father was, Norman. And Harry becomes it later through whatever, I mean, through Norman's making him insane or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember, but it's, to the common fan, which is what most of these movies are for, unlike us, who aren't common fans, it's, to them, they don't notice the difference, but for someone like me and you and anybody else, we go, oh, this, you know. They're not going to probably take too much into our opinion.
Right.
But I didn't care for that too much. I know Harry becomes the Green Goblin, but I'd like to see the process of it. Because if you read the story behind him becoming the Green Goblin, it was a process that he became the Green Goblin. It was a slow process.
Right.
Different things happen to him that switches him into the Green Goblin, too. I didn't like how they just right off the bat made him the Green Goblin. We talked about his relationship with Peter.
Yeah. Where?
Never mentioned in the first one at all.
Never mentioned, no.
And in this one, halfway through the movie, oh, Harry, it's been 10 years. How have you been? You know, and then they're out there talking, throwing rocks. Nice arm, Pete. Okay, I mean, I haven't, you know, they were supposedly best friends, which is, we all know that is in the comic book. They should have got into this. They should have got into it in the first one if they knew they were doing the second one.
Exactly.
They should have got more
into earlier, you know, how come they didn't do it in the first movie, you know, when Uncle Ben tells Pete that his dad worked for Oscorp, and Pete's like, oh, you mean, you know, Harry's company, Harry's dad's company. You know,
yeah, I agree with you.
Why wouldn't they know that?
I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, you could have tied it in a little bit better. I think in thinking about it now, I think it was really rushed.
Oh yeah.
The Harry and Peter thing was really rushed, and we might as well say it. And if you haven't seen it yet, when you go watch it, you're gonna maybe think the same thing me and him do. This is more gears towards the next Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah.
I felt that through the whole thing.
It's setting up for the next
third one.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. I mean, its comparison to me, like I said, was the Attack of the Clones of Star Wars. I felt it was along the same line and vein, and it had the same kind of tone to it throughout the whole movie, you know?
Yeah.
And then they just threw in some cool stuff to, like, catch your eye. I mean, that's basically how I felt about this. I mean, I did like it. Like, I liked Attack of the Clones. Was it my favorite Star Wars? No.
Uncle Ben, you know, I was telling you before we started this, you know, when we ended the last movie, Peter's, you know, putting stuff up in his room, and he's trying to figure out he still haven't figured out who Uncle Ben's killer is. And in this movie, he doesn't even look for Uncle Ben's. I think it has a lot to do with, you know, too many stories going on.
Yeah.
And you think that would be his high priority, Uncle Ben's killer, you know. I don't know why they didn't do it. What do you think?
I think I agree with you that I think too much stuff was going on. That was probably a major reason why. And second, the story with his parents.
Yeah.
He found out a lot more about what was going on with them, so that kind of took away from the Uncle Ben story in a way.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any room for it. I mean, if there was, that would have been another half hour, 45 minutes, and he had been sitting in there till 3 hours instead of just 2.5.
Well, that's my point. I mean, they could have cut out some of, I don't know, the romance or you could have cut out Rhino and Electro completely and have Hobgoblin, Green Goblin, and then Peter trying to find Uncle Ben's killer and about his parents. That would have been, I thought, would have made a better movie. But you know, like you said, they just didn't have room for it because they had too much
Stuff going on.
Death of Gwen Stacy. How do you think they handled it?
I thought it was really good because that's very, very similar to how she died in the comic.
Yeah.
It was a different place. I believe she died on the New York, one bridge. It was with the Green Goblin. Mm-hmm. He's the one that had her captive or whatever. And she dies the same way. He tries to save her.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he breaks her neck. I love the way they kept it. I mean, that was true to the source material, which, you know me, I love that.
Right.
It wasn't a big shocker. I mean, I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when.
My problem with it, you know, isn't that it wasn't accurate. I thought it was fine. It doesn't matter to me whether it's on the bridge or in the clock tower. It doesn't matter whether it's Harry or Norman. Not really. But what really bothered me was it felt shoehorned in. We have to put this in here because this is what the fans want.
I feel it was ushered in, but I felt it was necessary. I just don't know. I mean, I thought it should have been at the end of the first one. I felt maybe either at the end of the first one or the beginning of this one.
I would have been fine with it. Like I said, if Green Goblin was the main villain and was the only villain, I think that's the way it should have been.
I agree.
But since they had all this other stuff, I thought it was rushed. I thought that the Green Goblin wasn't developed enough. I thought that Peter and his relationship wasn't developed enough. I felt that they, you know, in the comics, Gwen's death was something they were leading up to, you know, and here, you know,
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I felt it was rushed a lot. I felt the characters were rushed. I felt the storyline was rushed a little bit. And again, we got to get that Spider-Man movie out.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
That's the way it seemed, yeah.
And they already got it set for 2016.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they already got another one set up. And it's like, I hope to God I mean, they're making, like I said, they're making so much money and they're just like, oh, it's working. It's working. It's not working.
No. No. They're just cranking it out right now.
It's becoming a money machine, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Okay, how many people died in the first film? You had Gwen's dad, Uncle Ben, Peter's parents. You know, 4 people close to Peter died in the first film, and that's one thing that made it real depressing. And I was like, you don't have to do that. You can space them out a little bit. And that's what they're doing here. Now you have Gwen's death. Why? You didn't need to. You could let it go till the next movie or whatever. but they're just like you said, like we're both saying, is they're rushing things. Now that Gwen is dead, those are all of the major deaths in Spider-Man's lives. Who are they going to kill next? They don't have no one else.
They don't have no one else to kill except for Aunt May, and
yeah,
she stayed alive for a long time. So
I've been watching Three Stooges lately, and I was watching one short which they said something which just made me laugh, and I said, "This is perfect example of what they're doing with Spider-Man," and. The Three Stooges, they were going to Hollywood because they wanted to be actors. Larry goes up to Moe and says, "Moe, we don't know anything about making movies." Moe says, "Well, there's thousands of people out in Hollywood that don't know what they're doing." And he says, "And 3 more ain't going to make no difference."
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And that was said back in 1937 or whatever.
Exactly, and it's things
still things
same.
never change.
And so, I think we should wrap it up. Let's give your final grade.
Like I said, I liked some things about it. I thought it was a little bit better than the first one. I liked the scenes with the web slinging and all that. The 3D was pretty good. I know you didn't see it in 3D. The fight scenes were pretty good in 3D and the web slinging and all that. I'd have to give this grade. I'm very close to giving it a C+, but I'm going to give it a B- just because I did like a lot of things about it. I thought they did a better job in this one on some of those things than they did in the first one. And I thought that things were rushed. It could have been a better job as far as, like I said, Harry's relationship with him and all those other things that we've all talked about. And I give it a B- with my teeth grinding because it's hard for me to do, but I did enjoy it. I thought it could be better. I thought it could be. I mean, it's like I said, it's not in Captain America's same sense as that, or Thor: Dark World, or Pacific Rim, or any of those. Those movies were spectacular movies.
Right.
They got them absolutely right, and I've had a few people come up to me and say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, this is just a segue to the third one." I'm like, I gotta agree with them. I can't disagree with them.
Yeah.
It seems like they're putting more emphasis on the next movie than they did on this one, and I think that hurts it a lot.
A lot, yeah.
I think they could have done a better job if they would have focused just one movie at a time, and I think that's why Marvel and the Avengers and they got it right, because they focused one movie at a time to build it up.
Right.
And all of it's been a build up. That's why the Avengers was so fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it had all the elements of the things and it was a build up. And I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm telling you what, on the Avengers I was like on the edge of my seat the whole movie.
Yeah.
And like I said, that is the grade of a great movie. You're
That's
on
what
the
makes
edge
a
of your
movie
seat.
great,
That's
yeah.
what makes it great.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it a B-, and it's a rough B-.
Yeah. I'll say that there are things that I liked better about this Spider-Man than I did the last one. But with every step forward, they take like 3 steps back with what's wrong with it. The comic book movies have been getting really good lately, some of them. And when you have movies like the Avengers, like The Dark Knight, and the recent one we just saw was Captain America, Spider-Man, Sony, you gotta step up your game.
They do.
With all these that are so good out right now, that makes my expectations higher for these other comic book movies. You have to come up to here. You can't be here any longer. You have to bring it up.
They got that upper echelon set now with the Avengers. I
Yeah.
mean, that movie was so phenomenal that all these companies that come out with these comic book movies, you better use that as your goal. Like, hey, we got to do something like the Avengers, that good.
Yeah.
Story, acting, all that.
Yeah.
And Man of Steel dropped the ball.
Yeah.
This one was a little bit better, but I think they just have to get it right. And it's just, I think the ideal situation would take Sam Raimi's movies and mix it with this one.
I've heard people say that.
That
yes.
would make the perfect Spider-Man movie, because I like the elements of Sam Raimi's movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I like this guy's job. Mark Webb, I think's his name. I think he does a good job with a lot of the things he does. If you melt the two into one, You're gonna have the best Spider-Man movie ever.
Yeah, you could. So yeah, to give my grade, I have to give it a D, I believe. That's the grade I give. It's not a D plus, not a D minus, just a D.
What'd you give the first one?
I can't remember.
I thought you
honestly.
gave it a C minus or a D on that one too, I believe.
I probably gave it a D. That's what I'm thinking. And this one, yeah, that's what I have to give it. Anyway, that's enough from us. So I'm Tony Beers.
I'm Jason Case.
And we'll see
See
you
you later.
time.
Toxic Pop has a new Facebook page. Like it to see pictures and keep informed about our upcoming events and videos. A link is in the description. Go to www.facebook.com/toxicpop1.